Hey, what is up guys, you can Chipsy and we are back here today for week 7 of the APA. And this is going to be an exciting week. We're facing off against Joey, pokeaimMD. You guys all know AIM, I'm sure. He is one hell of a content creator. And yeah, one of the greats of YouTube, in my opinion, when it comes to Pokemon. Competitive mons, he's played in all gens, essentially. He's been playing competitive mons far longer than I have. And yeah, he plays a ton of different formats at all at a really high level. So yeah, definitely an exciting player to be faced up against this week. And yeah, Joe's a good friend of mine. I've watched him turn into a really great draft player, so it's exciting to actually face him in this season. You know, whilst Little Cup is arguably not as competitive as a higher tier draft league, it's still going to be a tough one. I mean, AIM has I'd say more competitive experience in Little Cup than a lot of the players in this league, so it's definitely going to be an interesting game. For anyone who isn't somehow subscribed to Joey, go check him out. He's a real beast of a player, and he's a fantastic content creator. And yeah, Joey has drafted an incredible squad. Diglet, it may as well be Doug Trio. Diglet plus Wingull and Timber, just incredible offensive core. For those of you guys who don't really know much about Little Cup, I'm sure you can understand how busted Diglet is. This thing is incredible. It's got the fastest speed tier in the tier, and Arena Trap is balanced. I'll say that. Doesn't really affect my team too much, but it really is an ability that can dismantle a lot of defensive cores. In conjunction with Z move, like Z Ground, for example, can just blow away a lot of mons that the rest of his team may struggle with. Then Wingull is just an incredible offensive threat. This thing is like phenomenally good in LC. Yeah, and then he's got Timber, which is just a monster. But I can't lie to you guys, Rattata, his Alolan-Rattata, is probably the biggest threat to my squad. Like that thing, prepping for that thing, whew, this thing is a beast. It 2KOs everything, literally everything on my team. Nothing is safe. Even Big Spritzy doesn't survive like 2 hits from this thing if it's Life Orb. So yeah, it's definitely a big threat. I got to play around it carefully. He's opted to bring the Shinx here, which is a pretty solid response to stuff like Volibee. Joe's used Shinx really well. He's brought a lot of like fat berry juice intimidate variants, which can really shut down a lot of physical attackers, or at least slow their kind of momentum versus his team. And he's also brought the Swinub, which is most likely his rocker this week. And yeah, Swinub has a pretty decent matchup versus stuff like Volibee, but it is checked reasonably well by Bronzor. Yeah, like I said, Joey's got an amazing squad, but we're rocking a pretty powerful team this week. Real kind of offensive breakers that I'm bringing here are Z Corpish for the first time in this LC season, and yeah, this thing goes in. Joey's water resists aren't that amazing, to be honest, so he doesn't really appreciate switching in. Everything is OHKO'd by Z Water. I think like Wingull is, if it's like bulky, it gets OHKO'd by Z Crabhammer into Aqua Jet, so that's pretty nice. And Life Orb Meowth can really cause him some problems here, depending on like Berry Juice and like Protect, if he's running that on his mons. But Spritzy is pretty much my most valuable win con if I can preserve it around for the late game. I'm a Trick Room variant, which can certainly put in the work in a late game situation once things that can avoid the OHKO from Moonblast have been sufficiently chipped down. Yeah, we're rocking Stealth Rock Bronzor as usual. I got a Sash Smooching, which is a pretty decent lure to stuff like the Rattata, and can function as an emergency button versus stuff like Diglet, not carrying beat up, stuff like Timber, and even the Wingull. So we're going to jump into the match. I decided not to lead with Meowth, whilst it is really tempting on paper. It's such an obvious lead versus this team, and if he does want to lead with something like Protect Wingull, which is Protect Wingull is pretty standard, he will be able to tank, obviously, like be immune to the fake out, and then proceed to OHKO my Meowth, whilst I can't OHKO him, because I'm not carrying like Return on this Life Orb set. So I'm instead going to lead with Bronzor, which covers pretty much every one of his leads. I am Colbert, so I don't have to fear him being like knocking me out with like Crunch from Rattata. Before I jump into the game, I do want to thank Panther for recording my match, and I want to thank JustKurt for genning my squad this week. So Shoutouts to those guys. But we're going to lead off with Bronzor, and he is going to lead off with Wingull. So yeah, happy I didn't lead Meowth on the off chance that he was like a Protect set or even just a Berry Juice set, as he's going to go for knockoff here, proccing my Cobble Berry, which obviously means that Rattata can now OHKO me, but getting this damage off on Wingull is pretty important. I do crit him here, but even without the crit, I would have put him below 50, so his Berry Juice would have procced. It would have been the same situation, so good to see that turn 1 crit. Pretty irrelevant there, as he's going to go for the Scald, and he's going to burn me here, which is kind of unfortunate because I would be able to live, unless he got the very max damage roll. Most of the damage rolls were actually 10. There were a couple of 9s, the majority were 10s, and then there was one 11. So assuming he was max special attack, but I do get my rocks up here, and I am going to be able to stay in here and just click Psychic on the off chance that he wanted to defog. I would at least get damage off on this Wingull. But yeah, unfortunately because of the burn, we are in range of a mid-roll from the Scald. So I'm going to have to bring in my Smoochum here and kind of bluff the fact that I am Scarfed. On the off chance that Joey does switch, like, he may not fear me to be Scarfed, he may just think I'm like Sash even and want to preserve his Wingull. Clicking Ice Beam here covers him going into the Rat. I will be able to get the OHKO on that. If he does go Swinub, which is actually the play he ends up making, he will be able to take this pretty well, because as you're going to see, he is a very Spadef, or just at least in a Violite Swinub with Thick Fat, and that is gonna chew that Ice Beam up. Like, young Smoocher is strong, but yeah, Swinub is no joke. This thing is putting work for Joey so far. So he's going to get up his rocks, and at this point I do have my Sash intact, and he actually isn't carrying the Ice Shard here, so I think if he was carrying Ice Shard, he would have gone for it, but he sent me his team after the game, and he wasn't actually running Ice Shard, so I definitely understand why he obviously didn't click it there, but this is nice for me. He is going to go out into his Wingull right here, and this is pretty solid. I can just click Ice Beam and get a kill. Whilst I will lose my Sash to his knockoff, I have removed Wingull, which is a bit of an annoyance versus my team. Him being able to knock off something like Spritzy's Violite could be pretty bad for the late game, so removing this threat, this monster, Wingull, Pico, is definitely nice for me. So he's going to now bring out Chimpact. This is his Timber, and whilst I could preserve Smoochum, like predicting him to go for the Mach Punch here, which is his safest play, there's just no point. Like, I don't really, like, Smoochum dies to pretty much everything on his team. Like, literally everything kills it at this point, apart from Shinx. So yeah, there was no point, you know, risking my Spritzy getting knocked off or anything there, when I can just bring in Corphish here and click the Z move. It feels good to finally use a Z move with this mon, because yeah, Corphish is strong, and I've wanted to run a Z move on this thing for a while now, but haven't really felt it until this game. So I'm gonna see the Hydro Vortex coming out here, and Gerda's probably running a Violite. Like, this thing is bulky, like on the physical side particularly, but it is not bulky enough to take a Z Crab Hammer from an Adamant Corphish. So the Timber is going to go down here, which is really solid for me. That takes some pressure off Spritzy. One less thing to click knockoff versus me. He now has no knockoff users, which is really nice, so I don't have to worry about Spritzy's Violite being knocked off. As here he is going to bring in Shinx. Now I'm going to choose, instead of like clicking Aqua Jet here and getting, you know, just a bit of chip off on the Spritzy, off on the Shinx, I should say, I'm going to go to Meowth, thinking that he's more than likely going to go for Volt Switch here. Meowth lives a Volt Switch and threatens anything that he wants to go out into with a Fake Out or Feint respectively, so I am going to make the play into Meowth. If he clicked T-Bolt here and killed my Meowth, or if he crit my Meowth or something like that with any move that wasn't Volt Switch, I would be able to go into Spritzy the following turn and set up a Trick Room. But going Meowth kind of immediately shifts the offensive momentum back into my court, because I will be able to capitalize next turn on the Fake Out. But he does make that play. He's just going to go for the Volt Switch. And that reveals to be, I think, somewhat invested. I have Aim Steam, but I don't really remember the Shinx spread. But he does reveal later on to be the Berry Juice item on that. So I'm going to go full of Fake Out here, and Joey makes a really nice play and just goes back out into his Shinx, knowing that with the Intimidate, even without the Intimidate actually, my Meowth's Fake Out would put the Shinx in range of proccing his Berry Juice, and he's going to get right back up to full. So this is a really cool set. I know he's brought this a couple of times, I think, and it's really put in the work. Intimidate really coming in clutch in Little Cup. So I am going to go for the Water Pulse here, because it will damage Shinx more than any other of my attacks, and I do get the Confusion, but thankfully he's not going to hit himself here. So he will knock me out here now with the Volt Switch, but this Shinx is going to be in range of Aqua Jet now from Corphish, which is amazing for, you know, a late game situation when I have to click Aqua Jet. I think I'd have to be neutral. I'd have to come in on his Shinx as opposed to him switching in on me, because he'd get the Intimidate drop there. So he's going to bring in his Rat, his big threat, Envy, and I'm going to go out into my Volibee, because I know that I can click Roost, or at least click Brave Bird versus the thing to get damage. If he's Life Orb, that's going to be revealed, but he ends up going out to his Shinx on this turn, as that's a fine play. He's going to get the Intimidate off, and he's going to be able to check my Volibee depending on what kind of coverage he's running here. So I'm going to go for Volt Switch, and because I am a Violite, I know that I will be able to roost off a Volt Switch if he wants to stay in here and click that, but he's actually going to go for the Discharge here, and I'm at 17, so he's going to take me down to 5, so it does a solid amount, does 12 damage, and unfortunately he's going to get the Para, as I am going to roost up this turn, just getting back up to a nice amount. Really, I can sack Volibee off here and go into Spritzy and click Trick Room, so I am just going to start spamming Roost, because I want Spritzy to come in on this Shinx, as opposed to having to come in and chew a hit from the Rat. So right here I get paralyzed, but it's really not going to be the end of the world, as he does click Discharge, and this is going to, whilst I do lose my Volibee, which is kind of unfortunate, because Volibee was a decent check to Rat, and the Diglet, if I was healthy enough, this will give me my Spritzy here, and I will just be able to click Trick Room this turn, as he is going to go for the Discharge, fishing for the Power, which I definitely understand that's his best play, 100%. So I'm going to set up a Trick Room this turn, as right here, I don't really want to mess around with Discharge Powers. I'd rather just go for the Moonblast. I am out of range of a Life Orb Double Edge from the Rat, I believe. I think, no. I don't think I'm out of range of an Adamant Life Orb Double Edge, but I'm max roll, but I'm faster than him under Trick Room, so I force him to go into Diglet here, and this turn, I've got to respect the Z Ground from this Diglet, because, like, Z Ground is Diglet's best way of killing Spritzy, so that's a pretty common way that a lot of teams rely on taking Spritzy out. Like, a lot of Little Cup teams actually use Z Ground Diglet to get past Spritzy, so I'm just going to start Wish Protecting here, wanting him to reveal the Z Ground if he does have it, and knowing that I can kind of 1v1 this thing. I do have Trick Room up currently, so I want to get him into a position where I can take out the Diglet whilst having Trick Room up, to ensure that his Rattata doesn't outspeed me the following turn. So this kind of exchange is going to go on for a little while. He's doing about 9 damage, 9 damage each time he clicks Earthquake, so he told me after the game he was actually adamant. He was an adamant Scarfed Diglet, but at this point, like, I just feel like he's playing around my Spritzy's Wish Protects, and he's going to wait for the opportune time to click Z Ground. And yeah, if that is the case, obviously I want to be as healthy as possible. So each Earthquake is roughly doing about 9 damage. That one, yeah, roughly about 9 of 10. I think that did 8 that turn. I think, but 8 or 9. I think 10 might be the very max. I don't even know if you can do 10, but 9 is pretty much the average. As I am just going to continue Wish Protecting up. What this does is, if he switches out to Rat, I live any hit, even a Z move, even Adamant Z move, Adamant Life Orb Double Edge, assuming he's Hustle, of course. Like, that's the worst case scenario, that he's Hustle, and that's probably what he needs to break through my squad. So yeah, I am playing this in such a way that if he does make that switch, I live a hit, you know, bar a crit, and I will be able to take him out with my Spritzy's Moonblast. And if he does do that, and he weakens my Spritzy into range of his Diglet, Corphish can just come in and click Aqua Jet. So I want to have an out, no matter how Joey plays his endgame. But this turn I am gonna click Moonblast right here after he goes for an Earthquake and chips me down. Now, the reason I Moonblasted there was I knew that after taking the Earthquake, I'd recover enough to the point where my Moonblast, like that Moonblast damage, would be nice for me, because I could click Wish the following turn and get out of range of an attack from his Diglet. But the reason I protect here, I'm just going to bring it back just a little bit. So I am currently at I think like 22 HP, and I felt like now would be an opportune time for Joey to reveal the Z move, the Z ground if he had it, and I was going to be out of range of the 25% I'd take from that Z move into an earthquake the following turn, if that makes sense, and I'd just be able to continue wishing up and click. Actually, I'd be able to wish up and click Trick Room. If he switched to Rat, I would have a wish in the air and be able to protect into Moonblast. So I was playing this endgame in such a way that like I wouldn't be at risk of losing no matter what decision Joey made that turn. So I hope that makes sense. It made sense to me. I was talking to Joey about it after the game. I think it made sense to him too. But that was my thought process there. I felt like he was just really like preserving the Z ground, really smartly. But ultimately, he did end up being scarfed Diglet. So right here, I'm going to get the Trick Room up, and that is going to put Spritzy in a position where it will be able to outspeed or outslow, I suppose, the Rattata. And obviously, Sucker Punch is an option, but it's not going to really do anything to my Spritzy. Even with a crit, it wouldn't be able to take me out, even if he was Adamant Life Orb. So yeah, that is going to be a nice 2-0 win. Definitely had to play that end game pretty carefully around Rattata and Diglet. They are definitely a powerful combo. But that was definitely a fun game. One of the closest games I've played all season. So yeah, big shout outs to Joey for a fun match. Definitely go and check out his side of the match, and obviously go and check out the rest of his channel if you're not already a viewer of his, but I'm sure you all are. Hope you guys did enjoy. I know this one's going up a little bit late, but yeah, hope you enjoyed nonetheless. Tell me what you guys thought in the match in the comments, and drop a like if you enjoyed, and I'll catch you guys next time.